weatherman changed his tune slightly and postponed the speed at which the high winds were going to arrive in Orkney. So we set off early for the 30-mile journey from Kirkwall to Pierrowall on Westray. The first bit involved motoring across some of the flattest water I've ever encountered. The plan was to head out of Kirkwall Sound until we picked up the first roost, which surges through the Sound of Shappinsay and then splits, with one half going west and the other half going north. So, as long as we can avoid the former and hitch a ride on the latter, everything should be marvellous. Then we got just enough breeze to give the sails some shape, so it was off with the engine. It gave us a chance to drink in the delightful Orkney acoustic.
Seal.
The oral perfection punctured by the Earl Sigurd or the occasional mad clatter of one of the helicopters. We started picking up the weird whirls and swirls of the first roost. Freakily cool way to travel, I reckon. It amazes me how useful tides are. Like a river that flows both ways. It's a wonderful thing, so even if the wind dies, you can still get there without rowing or motoring or sailing. The intertidal regions are astonishingly productive, providing an endless source of forage for animals and shellfish for people. Add that to a free transport system and you have the foundations of civilization.
Standing wave here. Wow. So there's these kind of whirlpools all around us. How much water have we got under us, Joel? 13 metres. And here we go. It's creating disturbance out of nothing. This is just great. It's fantastic sailing. There's a standing wave here. I'm just going to go and see how fast we're going. 6.7 knots. Now, how fast would you say we're going? Judging by our wake. 1 knot? 2 knots maybe? No, we're doing 6.4 knots. 6.8 knots. 6.8 knots. Because the tide is, as the man said, we'd be doing it sideways. Before it looks too idyllic, it's my wife wearing a hat. Here's me wearing a hat. 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. Midsummer's Day. Welcome to Scotland. The sun is trying to come out though. One of the blokes said that I'd be doing a fair bit of sideways sailing today. And that's true, we're going sort of diagonally really across this tide. But every now and again the tide just sweeps us off to one side. The tiller pilot's trying to keep her on course. We're doing 3.6 knots and we are in the middle of this basically kind of sea which is surrounded by, it's a bay, but it's almost completely surrounded by these low-lying Orkney islands. Here, just coming up here, close to this island which is called Greenholm, and you can see that it's sheltered from every direction. There's a gentle wind blowing from the east at the moment, which is pretty much as they predicted. It's going to swing round to the north for a day or so, and then it's supposed to go south, and that should take us all the way up to Shetland. We're now about to come up here beside E-Days. We've got good tide running underneath us, and there's one that goes up here, and the deep water is close to this shore, the E-Day shore, and then up to the corner here. Is there a couple of lumps in the middle there somewhere? Which I can just see one of them anyway. High water Dover. And one of the rocks down here, Muckle Skerry, has the same tide as Dover. So that's quite weird, but quite convenient. It's blowing about force 2 maybe from the northeast. So the wind is supposed to shift around to the east, so we might get some good weather. .2 knots.
The Rosts are dead regular, and the Orkney Islands website offers hourly tidal flow charts. The moon and sun tugging on the Atlantic causes it to rise and fall, but where it comes close to land and shelving sea bottoms, that vertical motion is turned into horizontal. You can see where these flows derive their power by comparing tidal heights on the west and east coasts on the same day. While the spring tide on the west coast of Kinlochbervie is experiencing a 5-metre range, a similar latitude on the east at Wick has only 3.5. The Atlantic diligently attempts to smooth out these differences, and the only way to do it is to slam billions of cubic metres of water backwards and forwards with each tide. Most goes down the Pentland Firth and north of Orkney, but where there's a gap through the islands, the tide will try to squeeze through it.
Now in the Westray Firth, just come down here, there's a roost or a rost. It's written rost, but it sounds like roost when the locals say it. You can hear one roaring over here, down here somewhere, and we're just about to enter another one here. You can see it in the water, and that one will take us, it's like stepping onto an elevator. It's going to take us out through this narrow gap here. Last time I came to it, it was really disturbed, but there was a fisherman coming close to this set of rocks on this side. So I'm reasonably confident that I can get out of it. So we're tootling along at 2.6 knots, quiet day, and I'm assuming it's going in the right direction. I should be really disappointed if it's not. .4 knots. Come on, speed up. We're going at 0.7 knots now. Good.
Oh, look at it. We're going back.
Well, I'll get out of it.
However useful they are though, one thing is certain, the tides will eventually turn against you. Then you have three choices. Drop the hook and wait patiently for the tide to turn in your favour. Put the engine on and try to find some back eddies and slightly slacker bits of water and motor madly against the roost, going at 5 knots through the water and 1 over the ground, if you're lucky. Or you can head for one of Westray's utterly fabulous beaches to set out the foul tide. 17 to choose from, so we headed over to Tukoi Sands, and I've almost certainly mangled the name. The beaches of Orkney are a glory all to themselves. I used to be a stills photographer and continue to enjoy taking the time to frame and expose a half-decent shot. But then I also love the dynamic nature of video, especially when applied to something as sensuous as waves on a beach. There's artistry wherever you look. Compared to something as sublimely complex as an Orkney beach, the sculptures or paintings of man shrink into context and reveal themselves to be the crude, monkey-fisted approximations of the beauty to be found in the real world.
Hard to believe, but this is natural. Look at these pre-formed bricks.
"30 years ago, when Jill and I were last sailing up here in our e-boat, most of the island beaches were adorned with an old boat or mouldering tractor. Islanders have always used the sea as a disposal system. Given time, the restless tides will take everything and grind it into sand or mud before compressing it into rock, which will re-emerge from the sea in 30 or 40 million years' time. But along the way, it turns them into works of art and incorporates them into its own efforts. One day, maybe, some of these tractor parts might be intriguing fossils in a 50-million-year-old cliff face. Fortunately, the islanders have generally stopped dumping their detritus on the beaches, but for some of them, old habits die hard.
The debris up here is all due to farmers and fishermen.
So I've come through that main rush of tide. I had to change my mind on the route I was going to go. I was going to follow the shore of the main island, where I know there's deep water, but I couldn't get across there. The tide was sweeping me out. So I ferry glided, put the engine on and ran it pretty high knots, at a pretty high speed to get across here. And I want to come behind the back of that island there, fairly as close as I can allow to get the stream, and there should be a stream of tide which runs out that hole there. So this is Westray, it's the island we're going to be staying on. It's pretty nice. So we are now entering Rapness Sound with the last bit. How much more rep is there? Oh, well, so there's a couple more hours of bed to come, which should sweep me out of here. Any luck?
The magic of the tides still knock me sideways. How our ancestors accounted for them, I've no real idea. Can they be anything other than the work of the gods? They would obviously have clocked the connection between the phases of the moon and the size of the tides, but the twice daily plus an hour must have been incomprehensible. Some primitive societies used to think that the tides were created by a big green bloke and/or sea creature living in the sea who breathed the water in and out. Hence the whole Neptune, Poseidon, Kraken idea. Us 21st centurists laugh at these primitive concepts. We're much more sophisticated and know that it's the molecules in the water talking mostly to the molecules of the moon, which are 250,000 miles away, and a bit to the molecules of the sun, which is a good bit bigger but is 100 million miles away. This is done with the help of the Higgs boson, or the God particle, which we can neither really detect nor understand. I assume our descendants will eventually find our theories just as laughable as the big panting green man idea.
How much now?
6 meters.
Oh, jolly good. 6 meters. Well done. It's very good of you. Yeah. Tell me again what it says about this island.
Which island?
And this one, Faray.
Faray. There's very little.
Oh.
Favourite breeding ground for grey seals, which can often be seen lying on in great numbers on the wet rocks like well-cooked giant sausages.
No, I don't like the sound of that. I think he could have done better than that, don't you think? When it comes to describing things.
Ejected us through the narrow gap, and we followed the Westray cliffs along the coast.
That was good, I enjoyed that. Thank you, Westray Firth. It was quite a ride. You could be a frightening place if there's much wind about. Some of these places must really chip up. There's still a sort of swell being generated by it. Okay, so we safely came through the gap, and now we're going to sail up here and into Pierrot Wall. So fairly soon Papa Westray should become visible as we come round this stranger head. Coming from the south to Pierrot Wall, there's this skerry here, rocks just at the entrance, so you need to kind of take a long line. This is Midsummer's Day, okay, so if you want to come on holiday to this area on Midsummer's Day, this is the way you can dress. So you can dress like this on Midsummer's Day, okay, so this is just a bit of warning to you.